was overseen by the British Board of Trade, the same agency that had been derided by the U.S. investigators for the insufficient lifeboat requirements. The presiding judge was Sir Charles Bingham, Lord Mersey. Little new evidence was discovered during the 28 days of testimony. The final report stated that the loss of the said ship was due to a collision with an iceberg brought about by the excessive speed at which the ship was being navigated. However, Mersey also stated that he was not able to blame Captain Smith. He was doing not only that which other skilled men would have done in the same position. Captain Lord and the Californian, however, drew a sharp rebuke. The British investigators claimed that the liner was some 5 to 10 nautical miles, 9 to 19 kilometers from the Titanic, and that she might have saved many, if not all, of the lives that were lost. Both the U.S. and British investigations also proposed various safety recommendations, and in 1913, the first International Conference for Safety of Life at Sea was called in London. The conference drew up rules requiring that every ship have lifeboat space for each person embarked, that lifeboat drills be held for each voyage, and because the Californian had not heard the distress signals of the Titanic, that ships maintain a 24-hour radio watch. The International Ice Patrol was established to warn ships of icebergs in the North Atlantic shipping lanes and to break up ice. Aftermath and investigation of the Californian incident. The U.S. and British inquiries did little to end speculation and debate concerning the sinking of the Titanic. Particular focus centered on the Californian. Supporters of Lord, nicknamed Lordites, believed that the captain had been unfairly criticized. They held that the third ship, possibly the Samson, a Norwegian boat illegally hunting seals, was between the Leyland liner and the Titanic. That view eventually gained much support. Crew members of the Californian did not hear rockets being fired, though the sounds would have been audible if the ship had been within the distances claimed by the U.S. and British investigators. In addition, people aboard the Titanic stated that a vessel was headed in their direction, which could not have been the Californian, which was stopped at the time. While the true location of the Californian will likely never be conclusively known, many experts believe it was actually some 20 miles, 37 kilometers away, and would not have reached the Titanic before it sank. However, Lord has continued to draw criticism for his failure to take more action in response to the distress signals. Discovery and legacy. Within days of the Titanic sinking, talk began of finding the wreck. Given the limits of technology, however, serious attempts were not undertaken until the second half of the 20th century. In August 1985, Robert Ballard led an American-French expedition from aboard the U.S. Navy research ship Nor. The quest was partly a means north, 49 degrees 56'49" west, bow section. Some 13 nautical miles, 24 kilometers, from the position given in its distress signals, was explored numerous times by manned and unmanned submersibles. The expeditions found no sign of the long gash previously thought to have been ripped in the ship's hull by the iceberg. Scientists instead discovered that the collision's impact had produced a series of thin gashes, as well as brittle fracturing and separation of seams in the adjacent hull plates, thus allowing water to flood in and sink the ship. In subsequent years, marine salvagers raised small artifacts from the wreckage, as well as pieces of the ship itself, including a large section of the hull. Examination of these parts, as well as paperwork in the builder's archives, led to speculation that low-quality steel or weak rivets may have contributed to the Titanic's sinking. Countless renditions, interpretations, and analyses of the Titanic disaster transformed the ship into a cultural icon. In addition to being the subject of numerous books, the ship inspired various new movies, notably A Night to Remember, 1958, and James Cameron's blockbuster Titanic, 1997. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, artifacts from the ship formed the basis of a highly successful, profitable business was developed transporting tourists to the Titanic's wreck. Several museums dedicated to the liner draw thousands of visitors each year. Although the wreck of the Titanic will eventually deteriorate, the framed liner seems unlikely to fade away from public imagination. Two classic accounts of the disaster written by the Doyen, D-O-Y-E-N, Doyen, I think, of Titanic scholarship are Walter Lord, A Night to Remember, 1955, reprinted in 1988, and The Night Lives On, 1986. More recent accounts are Michael Davey, Titanic, The Death and Life of a Legend, 1987, also published as The Titanic, The Full Story of a Tragedy, 1986. Donald Lynch and Ken Marshall, Titanic, An Illustrated History, 1992. And John P. Eden and Charles A. Haas, Titanic, Triumph and Tragedy, 2nd edition, 1994. And that trace the changing image of the Titanic in the 20th century popular culture are Paul Heyer, Titanic Legacy, Disaster as Media Event and Myth, 1995, and Stephen Beale, Down with the Old Canoe, A Cultural History of the Titanic Disaster, 1996. A first-hand account by the oceanographer who found the ship's wreckage in 1985 is Robert D. Ballard and Rick Archibald, The Discovery of the Titanic, New and Updated Edition, 1995. Titanic, Legacy of the World's Greatest Ocean Liner, 1997, is a lavishly illustrated popularization. Theories concerning why the liner sank are discussed in Tim Fogg